Hi everyone. I hope you all are doing well, and the past 2 days of HPL have been going good for you guys. So this is day 3, and you have your history SBQ practice paper to do for today. So before you do this paper, you should try and attempt the lesson earlier that I uploaded on the rise of Hitler. You can watch the lecture, you can see the activities. It will help you understand more on revising this topic on the factors that led to the rise of Hitler. So, like I mentioned, this is a SBQ topic as well as an SE topic. But for this assignment, it's an SBQ. Okay. So, practice paper 1 focuses a lot on you honing your purpose skills, comparison, and reliability. Okay. I didn't have so many skills for you to answer for this paper. So, I hope that you will be very focused in answering uh, these questions. Okay. So let's look at the questions first for practice paper 1. For source A, they tell you what is the message of the source. Okay, so a message question actually is still a purpose question. Okay, but this time round you're going to use avamo, right? Okay, now what kind of avamo? You will be using um, you need to find the audience, you need to find the verb, you need to find the message, okay, of the source. So, when to attempting a message question, you don't need to use the context much. You need to understand what the source is actually trying to tell you. Okay, so if you're unsure of this, you need to look at the clues in the source. Okay, are they telling you that you need to that it was a propaganda source, and what elements show you it's a propaganda source, and things like that. Okay, now the second question is actually a why question. Okay, so let's look at this. It says, why was this photograph published? Okay, so this is a very straight up purpose question. You will need the context for this type of question. Okay, so please make sure that you have context written and that you can actually explain to the examiner the context that makes this photograph very relevant. Okay, now the next one is also another purpose question. This one is written as what was the purpose. Okay, but again, the examiner expects you to be able to tell me the not just the message and outcome, but also the context. Okay, because the context of the message will inform the outcome that the examiner was looking for. Now, the question D is a bit different now. Now we are looking at how do the sources differ. Okay, how to differ, you will need to not look at this obviously, but now it's a comparison question. So I need to see one similarity, one difference. Okay, so remember you must have a common criteria and you must be able to use evidence from the source to back up your statements and your criteria. All right. Now, the last question is a very straightforward reliability question. How reliable is the source? Okay. Now, as evidence that the Germans supported the Nazis due to Hitler's capabilities. So, you will have to read the source and ask yourself, from this source, what do I understand about the reasons that the Germans supported Hitler, and was it because of his capabilities? So this reliability question revises what you learned last year, but it's also using some of the utility skill things that you learned this year. Okay, so please remember that in a reliability question, you will have to write 3 paragraphs. Okay, you need to look at the content, you need to cross refer, and you need to look at the provenance as well. Okay, so there will be 3 aspects that you will need to answer for this question. So make sure that you are well aware of the different areas. Okay, like I mentioned, even if you don't have a cross reference, then you can jump straight to the provenance part. Okay, we will go through this in detail in the rest of the video. Now, before I go on to explain the sources, let me just remind you of the error that you need to amend over here. Okay, now source C, it should be the one that says 3 million people lack work. Okay, so make sure you swap it accordingly. And source D should be the one that says Hitler began each speech in low hesitating tones. All right. So if you want, you can download the new copy which I uploaded earlier. But if not, you can just make the manual change on your hard copy worksheet. Okay. So now let me explain the sources. So this entire source-based question is actually answering the question of, did favorable circumstances lead to the Nazis' rise in power? Okay. Now, what am I by favorable circumstances? I mean that was the unfortunate situation that Germany was facing, the economic crisis, the weakness of the Weimar government, was this the very unfortunate circumstances that made Hitler come to power, or was it a case of Hitler's abilities that actually made him come to power? Okay, so you need to look at each of these sources and ask yourself, which one is it? Is this source telling me is the circumstances, or is this source telling me that it is actually Hitler's abilities themselves? Okay, so now let's look at source A. Source A is a Nazi poster. So immediately when you see this, the first thing you should be able to tell is that this is very clearly a propaganda poster. Okay. And it has the caption, work and bread. Okay. Now, the year of the source is stated as 1932. Okay. So immediately when you see this, you should know one thing. 1932 is after the very, very, very big event of Great Depression. And so German people are actually suffering now because of the impact of the Great Depression. So you should be making this very clear for yourself in the analysis of the source. Okay. So it says here work and bread. Okay, so it means that the poster is advertising about work and bread, and it shows you a man, a Nazi man. I assume it's a man because of the veins in the hand. Okay, and wearing the Nazi symbol on his sleeve. Okay, giving out these tools. Okay, these tools that people can use to work in the farms, work in the factories, to make items, carpenters, things like that. And you see numerous hands like reaching out to receive them, okay, happily. Okay, so it shows that there are obviously a lot of people who wanted to receive all these tools, which refers to jobs. Okay, so here in the when the source is actually telling you about work, what it's actually referring to you is jobs. Okay, and you should immediately realize that in the impact of the Great Depression, many, many Germans were out of a job. So clearly, this would have been something that they really wanted, right? Okay. And the concept of bread refers to food. Okay, refers to food. Because if you also remember, because of not having a job, not having a home, okay, many of them were very starving and suffering as well. So here were the Nazis in a propaganda poster, telling people that they are going to give them food and jobs. Okay, so the question asks you, what is the message of the source, right? Okay, so you have to ask yourself, what is the message that the source is trying to tell me? Okay, is it trying to convince you something? Okay, now, and why do I say it's a convince? Okay, because it's a propaganda poster, so it must be actually trying to convince German people about something. Okay? You don't put propaganda out there unless you want to brainwash someone about something. So there's definitely some convincing going on here. Okay. Now, what is the thing that you want to convince them about? Okay. The Nazis would solve problems, them food and jobs. Okay, possibly something like this. So now the question is, why would the Nazis want promises? Okay, and what is the outcome they want from the people? Why would the Nazis want to promise food and jobs? Okay, what is the action they want people to? Okay, now this is where you need to use some of your historical context. You need to ask yourself, okay, 1932 was a very, very interesting year for the Nazis. If you remember in my earlier lecture, I talked about how in 1932 there was an election, okay, and that was the first time that the Nazis actually got the majority, the largest share of the votes. Okay, not majority but largest share. Okay, so you need to look at that context when you look at this source. Okay, it will make you understand how even more why the Nazis were uh, advertising for food and jobs in 1932. Okay, so use this to answer the question and decide on what the outcome would be. If there was an election, what would they want the people to do? Okay, and how do you convince people to do things? It's when you give them what they like and want. Okay, so there's no context needed for this source, so you can move on to the next question. Okay, so the next source is a photograph, okay, of unemployed people queuing outside the employment office. Now, an employment office is like a place where you can find jobs now, okay, because you know in this time there's no internet now. You cannot go and search for jobs on the internet. So if you want to find a job, you have to go to the employment center, and they will find a job for you based on the available opportunities, okay. And if you look at this queue here, oh my God, look at how many people are lined up here, over here, this long row in front, so many people around, people on bicycles that come just over here waiting for a job. Okay, and again you can see here the year is 1930. Okay, so this really shows you that it is also during the impact of the Great Depression. Okay, so it is very clear to you now that there was something happening here during the years after the Great Depression to Germany. So immediately when you can see so many people lining up, you obviously notice that there is an issue with employment. Okay, you can understand here that many people who are unemployed, okay, looking for jobs at the government office. So you need to make sure you use a verb, okay? So you can consider using verbs like educate, inform, or convince if you really want. Okay, um, different people, many people were looking unemployed and looking for jobs at this particular time. Okay, so the outcome is something that you need to think about. Okay, if you look at the source here again, it is published in the newspaper. Okay, this is the why would you publish a photograph like this in the newspaper? Okay, every morning when you open the newspaper, there's a lot of news now about HPL, about COVID, right? Now, why would the government be printing such information? Would they be printing? Would this information be printed by the government or the newspaper? Okay, do you think the government would print a picture showing so many unemployed people? Usually, the answer is no. The government never wants to acknowledge that they have made a mistake or there's a problem. Okay, so it is probably done by a private newspaper that they are publishing this kind of photograph. Okay, so the question is, why would they want to do so? Why would the newspaper want to publish such a sad photograph of people being unemployed? Do you all want us to say, oh, so poor thing? No, right? The newspaper is being read by German people as well, right? Who are also unemployed. 6 million people unemployed. So what is the actual target audience here? You need to ask yourself, actually, what is the outcome that they want? Okay? Why would the newspaper print such a sad photo of those people? Okay? What would the newspaper people be trying to convince you about? Okay? Um, every time you open the newspapers, there's always things telling how good Singapore is doing, how popular Singapore is doing. Because the newspapers want you to be very proud of Singapore, very proud of how we are handling things and everything like that. Okay, so same thing here. By publishing a sad photograph, who was the newspaper targeting? Okay, is it people or the government? Okay, one, government do seeing this. Okay, I'm going to leave it up to you when think about this option or what outcome will be. I've already given you the message, so you should note it. Okay. The question is, what is the context of the situation? Already we talked about this, 19, the impact of the Great Depression. So this is something you should be talking about in your essay. Okay, your SBQ answer. I mean, okay, you should be telling me about the impact of the Great Depression on Germany. Okay, 6.1 unemployed people and we'll be talking. Let's look at the next source. Okay, source C. C was again a purpose question. Okay, a purpose question this time round again from a Nazi pamphlet. So now we know again we're looking at a propaganda source. Okay, commenting on the situation in Germany under the Weimar government. Okay, in 1930. Okay, so this is under the Weimar government, just like this source. Okay, it is in 1930, the same timeline. So again, we are looking at the period of the Great Depression. It says 3 million people lack work and sustenance. Sustenance means food. Okay, sustenance is food. The government officials work to cover up the misery. They speak of policies and silver linings. Silver linings means good things. Things are getting steadily better for them, but steadily worse for us being the German people. Okay, the illusion is like the fakeness of freedom, peace, and prosperity that we were promised is vanishing, disappearing. These irresponsible policies can only lead to a complete collapse of our people. Okay, so this source is trying to tell you the Weimar government said that they will give us peace and prosperity, but this is not happening. We are all suffering. Only the government is doing well. Okay, so the question here now is, why would a Nazi pamphlet write these rather terrible things about the Weimar government? Okay, so again, you need to use your Kavamo. Okay, so you need to ask yourself, what is the message, what is the outcome, and what is the content. So you must be answering questions quite clearly. The message is really quite clear. Okay. Um, it's definitely trying to criticize, okay, the Weimar government. And what I'm going to leave you to go and find the message out, because I already helped you with the earlier sources on what critical point is. Okay. Now, what is the outcome of it? Okay. Why would Nazis, okay, uh, criticize the Weimar government? What do they want people to do, okay, after reading this source? How do you want the German people to react to the Nazi government after reading this particular source? And what action can they possibly do? Okay, there is no election in 1930, so please don't write that. Okay, what is it that they'll be using now? Okay, and when it comes to the context, it's still the same context. We haven't changed. We're still at 1930, so we're still looking at the same context here about the impact of the Great Depression and how people were suffering. Okay, so this is again a purpose question. You can answer it clearly. Now we have our comparison question. Okay, I think this comparison question is actually quite doable. The first one is by a historian. He describes Hitler. Hitler began every speech in a low, hesitating tone, gradually raising the pitch and volume of his voice, then exploding in a climax of frenzied indignation. He combined this with carefully rehearsed hand gestures for maximum effect. His sole competence skillfully played on the emotions of the audience, bringing the level of excitement higher and higher until the people wound up a wide-eyed, screaming, and frenzied mass that surrendered to his will and looked upon him with pseudo-religious adoration. Hitler offered something to everyone: work to the unemployed, prosperity to failed business people, profits to industry, expansion to the army, social harmony, and an end of class distinctions to idealistic young students, and restoration of German glory to those in despair. Okay, so this historian described how Hitler gave his speeches, the volume, the pitch, how he used hand gestures, and how he promised something to everyone, so people all felt like they could understand and were happy when they heard what Hitler had to say. Okay, now the second source, okay, is by a Nazi opposition party member. Okay, in 1932, and he says, "I have personally witnessed Hitler's speeches. I feel sad for those who believe that he's some sort of angel messenger who comes up with the best speeches. He gets help. It's all rehearsed. He has a team to help him. They come up with the best words and can get the right reaction from the audience. They make sure they use the right words and the appropriate promises. Hitler then uses these scripts and delivers convincing speeches. He is no miracle from God. So, both of these sources are actually talking about Hitler's speeches. Okay, so but one has a more negative tone, and one has a more positive, neutral kind of tone. Okay, so the question here now is, what would you decide are going to be the similarity and the difference? You cannot just tell me they're both about the speeches. That's very low level stuff. Okay, so I need to see a clearer answer here. Okay, what will be the similarity? What is the common criteria? Okay, if you notice, they are both talking about how people were very influenced, okay, by Hitler's speeches. You can phrase this in any other way in your own words as well. Okay. They both talk about how people were really, really swept up by it, and felt that he truly understood what they were feeling. This one also talks about how, he's an angel messenger who has the best speeches, okay, and he can deliver these convincing speeches, okay. Now the difference is in terms of uh and of how he might have how people might have received the speeches, okay. uh In the first one, tells you that, you know what, everybody liked Hitler's speeches because he offered something to everyone. Okay. Whereas in the second one, this guy is like saying, uh, I don't know why y'all feel so into him. I feel really sad for you because it's all rehearsed and fake. Okay. So this one is saying that clearly he's not a very genuine speaker. All right. So you can write the similarity and difference on your own. I'll leave this up to you. Okay. Now the last question is the reliability question. Okay, so this is a source by Amy Buller, an anti-Nazi German teacher. Okay, so she's German, but she doesn't like the Nazis. All right, and let's look at what she wrote. At one of the earlier congresses, I was sitting surrounded by thousands of SA men. Wow, all of Hitler's soldiers were around her. As Hitler spoke, I was most interested at the shouts, and more often the muttered exclamations of the men around me, who were mainly workmen or lower middle class types. He speaks to me. He knows how I feel. One man in particular struck me as he leaned forward with his hands, with his head in his hands, with a sort of convulsive means like shaking, sob, said, God be thanked, he understands. Okay, so this lady, she doesn't like the Nazis, but she must have turned up at the rally. Maybe she's curious to know what's happening. And she was observing the people at the rally and the kind of reactions they had to Hitler, and they all seemed to be totally, struck by him and what he was saying. So if you notice the question earlier, they actually told you based on this source, can you use it as evidence that that Germans supported Hitler due to his capabilities? Okay, capabilities. So if you notice here, they are actually telling you very clearly that she's actually telling you very clearly that a lot of people actually really like what Hitler had to say. Okay, they felt that he understood them. Okay, and that he could feel the same thing that they felt. So definitely here we can see that it's reliable, okay, because shows that the Germans supported the Nazis to Hitler's capabilities in speaking, okay, um, and that he could reach out to every German with his messaging, okay. Now the next step is to cross refer. You have to cross refer either to another source or your contextual knowledge. Now be very careful that you don't cross refer to another propaganda source. In a topic of Hitler, cross referencing is a very careful activity, because there are many propaganda sources in Hitler's Germany. Okay, so if you cross refer, please look very carefully. You must either cross refer to a historian source or to your contextual knowledge. Okay, so do not use propaganda sources. Come on, you're already Sec 4. I don't want to see this kind of very noob you already going out for levels, no propaganda sources, they cannot be trusted. It's like using one unreliable source and cross-referencing to another unreliable source. Okay, so historian sources are fine generally. Okay, of course, the best is always contextual knowledge. If you have any of these, you can also use it. All right. Now, if you don't have anything to cross-reference to, you're like, teacher, I really can't think. Then you can look at the provenance. Okay, this lady is anti-Nazi. Okay, now how does that make you feel? Do you feel like you can answer more? Okay, do you feel like it is quite expected that anti-Nazi would talk about how people were so taken by Hitler? Is it quite normal, or is it actually quite strange that an anti-Nazi lady is saying how people were so impressed by Hitler? Okay, she doesn't really express any negative opinion here at all in her source, which is quite rare for someone who doesn't even like the Nazis. Okay, so I would say that this source is an enhanced reliability source. Okay, because to expect criticism from an anti-Nazi, that she's actually um well and positive in her work. Okay, she doesn't really like criticize anyone. He speaks positively on how the other people perceived Hitler, okay, which is rather unexpected, okay, from someone who doesn't like Hitler herself, okay. Instead of calling them these people, can they believe Hitler? She just said, oh, they all seem to be very taken by him, They were saying things like, oh my God, he understands and stuff like that. So you notice the tone is also very neutral. So this is something important for you to look at, okay? So by having this enhanced reliability, what people will consider to be an unreliable source is actually very reliable. Okay, because she's not criticizing Hitler, she's just observing the effect that he had on people. Okay, so you can write this as your provenance. You can use Avamo, of course, to help you in answering this question. Okay, so all in all, this is actually a very doable paper. I'm sure you can actually do this in 1 hour or less. So like I said, please take time to go to your SLS, watch this video again if you have to, answer the questions. You can type your answers out on Microsoft Word, or you can and then you can email it to me after you type it out, or you can write it out and then take a photograph, convert it to PDF and email it to me. Or if you really don't know how to do all these things, you can just send me a photograph on WhatsApp. Okay, whatever the case, please get this done by next Tuesday. Okay, due to all the lags in SOS this week, I'm extending the deadline to next Tuesday. So please get this done. I've gone through the sources, so I think you should be able to do it. There should be no issue that you're confused. Yeah. If you still need more clarification, please message me and we can have a one-on-one consultation or a phone call even. All right. So good luck. Finish your work and enjoy the weekend. Okay. I'll see you soon and please stay safe. Take care.